Hey, Margaret.
Yeah, Anton?
You know what people don't talk about enough?
What?
Symphony would have been a truly wild choice for Simon's introduction. Welcome to People Don't Talk About, Young Royals. I'm Anton, my pronouns are he, they.
And I'm Margaret, my pronouns are they, them.
And we're people here to discuss the show our friends are sick of hearing us talk about.
If that sounds like you, stick around. If your friend sent you this podcast out of a desperate attempt to get you to watch Young Royals, take this as a sign.
Go watch Young Royals, then come back to this podcast.
Anton, what are we talking about today?
Today we'll be discussing the music of Omar Rudberg, the actor who plays Simon. Specifically, we're talking about Omar Covers, a 3-song single of the song Simon sings in Season 1 of Young Royals, including one original choice that was never included in the show.
Woohoo! Since this is a bonus episode unrelated to the plot of the show, we don't really have much of a disclaimer for you. However, we promise that any mention of Young Royals will not spoil anything past where we currently are in this week of Hilarishka episodes. At this point, we have summarized through Season 1, Episode 4. You have been warned.
All right. As often happens, I realize I didn't include this in my notes, but as often we should do whenever we have the first episode of a new episode type, we should probably be like, hey, what is this about? I mean, we basically said it in the intro, but essentially this is the first bonus episode of its kind, as we said, unrelated to the plot of the show, but we're definitely looking on trying to broaden our horizons to something we're calling cast and crew related bonus episodes, where we kind of use Young Royals as a jumping off point to discuss other things in the Young Royals universe because we can and because we want to. And it's generally working towards the project of talking about things people don't talk about enough, is just kind of starting to get used to discussing other media that is not strictly Young Royals. So with that, I guess let's get started. It should probably go without saying, but if you have not already listened to all of these, to the Omar Covers mini EP, or it's Spotify listed as a single, even though there's 3 songs, then you should listen to them because we're not gonna include any clips of them due to copyright. So it's basically just us discussing them like we do with the show, of just being this is what we think about this thing that you can access on your own, but we're not going to infringe copyright to include in this recording. But with that being said, should we just go in the order of the songs are listed in?
Yeah, let's do it. All
right. I mean, it's basically a chronological order too. So, It Takes a Fool to Remain Sane.
What a classic.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start by just saying this single is what it says on the tin. These songs are Omar Covers. By what I mean by that is this is the first time we're covering Omar's music, and these songs are my first exposure to Omar Rudberg's musical style. But re-listening to it now, this is an incredibly Omarified version of this song.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, the original "It Takes a Fool to Remain Sane" is more this vibe than soloist backed by a choir. But I say all this to not say anything about its quality. I love this version. It's just something that people need to be aware of if they're listening to this podcast without having listened to this version.
Mm-hmm.
And just something to take into account, because we're not getting Simon and the Hilarishka Choir's version of this song.
Right.
We're just not.
No.
That just has to be kind of a mini disclaimer, and we're not going to hold anything against it for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're not going to be it's not the one in the show, so automatically that has points against it. We're trying to review these songs kind of based on our own like separate from the show and just as pieces of music, even though like they are definitely obviously going to evoke feelings from the show that affect our interpretation of them.
I'm trying to like think about which version I like better.
Yeah.
Which is completely subjective, and if you disagree with my opinion, that's fine. That goes for Anton and the listeners, but I think I like the choir version better.
Yeah. I think that's probably a pretty universal thing. I would imagine like a lot of people, especially It Takes Two to Remain Sane and Remember, are going to say they prefer the show version. And I think largely it's probably because it's probably going to be the first one you were exposed to. And so I'm forgetting what the name of the psychological term for it is, but it's like if you see two versions of something that you're probably going to lean towards the original version unless the new version is like so substantially more your vibe or like more or like actually substantially better. And like they're just really different from each other. And it's like I have a hard time answering that same question. Like, I mean, this version of the song, largely because it's the only one that's on Spotify, is on like a playlist that I have that's like 10 hours long. That's like all of my favorite songs all the time. Yeah. So it's like,
it's a banger. It's really fucking good.
Yeah. I would say between It Takes Two to Remain Sane and Remember, this is kind of looking ahead a little bit, but I think this version of It Takes Two to Remain Sane is more my favorite than the Omar Covers version of Remember.
Yeah.
But again, entirely subjective. This is just our opinion. Onto the song itself. Like, I'll always love this song, like whatever version. Like, we talked about what it means in the season 1, episode 1 cycle in like the context of the show, but like I came to a lot of those conclusions being able to hear the lyrics in this version.
Yeah.
And being able to like see the lyrics like in Spotify. It's because it's not like Omar doesn't have good diction in the show. It's just like it's a lot clearer in like a studio version instead of a version that I'm pretty sure was probably recorded live. At least that's the vibe I get in the show, unless it's like really good sound editing on a studio recording. In the
He's
show.
Just really good at lip syncing.
Or they put a lot of really good reverb on it to sound like they're singing it in the church.
Yeah. Which, if that's what they did, fucking props to them, because that must have taken so much fucking time. But I feel like it would just be easier at that rate to record it live. Because
it's like, imagine like the extra cost of getting everyone in the choir to go into a sound booth.
And just the extra cost of the like human power it would take to edit all of that.
Right, yeah, that's just a lot. It's better to just record it on the day, I think. And like, because this isn't like a musical, like it's like it honestly would probably be distracting to do otherwise. Yeah.
God, Young Royals is a musical.
I don't know if that would work.
It wouldn't.
Don't. Yeah, you're correct.
But you know how
honestly,
that era of every teen or like YA drama doing a musical episode?
Yeah.
1-4 is a musical.
Oh god, no, stop. I think honestly you could only do a musical of maybe. Honestly, I could see you doing it. This is only the vaguest of spoilers. It's not even any specific details, but I think you could maybe do season 2 alone as a musical. I
hear you and I agree, but I don't like it.
No, fair. Like you'd have to imply the context of a lot of stuff, and just randomly dropping that, oh yeah, my second cousin recorded a video in the past of us.
Yeah, I don't know how it would work. I don't know how you sing about that, but you're right.
Valid. But really, what I want to say about It Takes Two to Remain Sane is that even though it definitely sounds like to my ears, it just sounds. There's a difference between Simon singing and Omar singing. I don't know how to describe it.
No, but I agree.
But the song is just very definitely is Omar singing, but the song itself is so deeply Simon. And it's also very deeply Omar, but that's just because they changed Simon's character based on who Omar is as a person. So it's he might potentially be the closest to his character that we have on the show, arguably. Yeah. And there's modal differences between him and Simon, and Omar would be the first to tell you that. But I don't know. The song is an anthem about being yourself, no matter what anyone else thinks. And like it just makes all the more sense to have this cover be a so like techno dance pop. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I think the original song is that, but also just like and also like that's kind of Omar's like main brand. Like he has a lot of sounds, but like that's his like go-to in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like
I
if
agree.
the fact that It Takes Rule Away Sane is the first Omar Rudberg song I ever heard like on Spotify is actually probably a pretty good introduction to him as an artist.
Yeah.
Even though it's not like fully, it was like picked for him. And like the refrain of It Takes Rule Away Sane just like always hits. Like
Yeah, it's fucking banger.
Like especially in the world of Young Royals, it does take a fool to remain sane.
Oh God.
And like the little fade out at the end is also just like so classic. Like I feel like fade outs I feel like are starting to come back a little bit, but like I feel like they're really uncommon nowadays.
I love a fade out.
I love a fade out.
I love a fade out. When I used to have to edit all my music for skating, every single fucking song had a fade out. Even if it kind of didn't make sense for the like for the song, I would, or like where I was stopping it, I would jeopardize those extra seconds to make sure we got a fade out that worked every time.
Do you have any more thoughts on this song before we move on?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I agree. It was just like the perfect way to introduce Simon to the show, but also it was also my introduction to Omar's music.
Right.
So it worked both ways for me, which was cool.
Yeah, same here. Speaking of that It Takes a Fool to Remain Sane working so well on the show, let's talk about Symphony, the titular song of this episode type, because it's really funny, because it's like the one Young Royals song that it will never be.
Show type?
Titular, like it's the title.
Titular?
Titular. 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 Yeah.
On this episode of Anton Teeps Margaret English, the only language they speak.
So yeah, but I feel like it would only made sense for multiple reasons to call this episode type Symphony, because it's the only Young Royals related song that is not in the show at all.
Yeah. And can we talk about how much I love this song? But if they had used this to introduce Simon, it would have been a completely different show.
Oh, it would have been almost a disaster. I think it kind of would have been a disaster. But like,
I don't know what it would have been, but it would have been different. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Because like, basically my first note was just like, I was done the instant I heard this song. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not work to introduce Simon as a character.
No.
Based on like in Young Royals Forever, a documentary I would not suggest watching until you finish the show. Like they talk about how like Simon as a character in the early drafts, was very Nick Nelson coded.
Mm-hmm.
And like that almost works for this, but it just like, it doesn't, it's like, I don't know. The song fits Willman as a whole, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so intense for a first meeting.
It's so intense for a first meeting, and I also don't know how much it fits the vibe of the actual show.
Yeah, fair.
Like, I was thinking about that this morning when I listened back to this song, and I was just trying to think of like a single episode
that feels like this song.
Yeah, where the mood of the episode matches the mood of Symphony. And I couldn't
the like happiest moments
one.
In the show. Like,
yeah, but
maybe.
Even those moments.
But even then, even those are like slightly more muted than this song. Like this song is like revelatory. Like it's like you're like Omar is having a ball singing this song, and
I don't think Simon has a ball the entire show.
Fair. I think looking at lyrics for a sec, before all I heard was silence. Like, I don't know. Like now I keep hearing symphonies before all I heard was silence. Like, I feel like that's great context for Simon's perspective on Willman's early relationship. If you take this song as like quasi canon, like they considered it for the relationship, and like they haven't fully gone into all the reasons why it wasn't chosen. But I don't know. What do you think of that line? Like, do you think it fits with how you read Simon's perspective? 'Cause I don't know. It's just like, because we've talked about how Simon's perspective is not in a lot of the early episodes before he kisses Wilhelm. And so you have to read between the lines like a lot. And the idea that this song was like floated as a potential character introduction for him makes me think that like it's a song that's very first love, and also it's Simon in the sense that it is a song about someone who was not planning on falling in love.
Yeah, I think it might be like I think that line might be kind of Simon before meeting Wilhelm coded, but I also feel like, I don't know, because he's a very because my hold up is just being like, he's very opinionated and he's very like kind of hold fast on his internal compass. Yeah. So I don't know.
I think for me, it may not work for Simon's like entire life up to meeting Wilhelm, but I feel like it works for the first month he's at Halerska up until meeting Wilhelm.
Okay, I can see that.
That's kind of more what I mean, just because I can't really conceive of Simon beyond him starting at Halerska. Like, I don't know what kind of student he was at Mariaberg, really. Yeah. Like, you can glean a little bit from how he interacts with Rosh and Ayub a little bit, because I feel like a bit of the old him kind of pops out in those moments, but
that's fair.
It's really hard to know that. But I think in terms of the Simon who we see who has had to endure a month at Halerska, and then is like finds someone he's like excited about, probably like for the first time in his life, like the song fits in that sense. And I think I can see a world where Simon feels a lot of this emotionally, like deep down, but would never express it like this.
That I can see.
Like, it still fits him as a character, sort of, but it would just never be in the show, is the thing. It's like, it is, the show, the song is, to a degree, like at least a somewhat of a Simon song, but it's not a Young Royals song. Yeah. At least the version of Young Royals they ended up with.
Yeah, I do wonder how late into the like planning of the show or the first episode, however they did it. I don't know how I don't know her method, so I don't know if it was she. And season one's
method was probably different from subsequent seasons, but
But I do wonder how far into the planning Symphony was still the top choice.
I mean, I do know that if Omar like knows about it, I think I only learned that Symphony was on this single because it was like a song considered instead of In Six Fool to Remain Sane because Omar said it in an interview like after the single came out. Yeah, and I think Omar said that he was kind of part of those discussions, or at least like was already cast when they were being had. So I think it could be a situation where, with the retooling that Simon was going through, and like the way the show had to change in order to fit Omar as an actor, I think there is a world in which this song maybe works if Simon was more of a Nick Nelson type character.
Yeah. Oh, Nick would sing this song for sure.
Yes. For context, Nick Nelson from Heartstopper. I know Heartstopper has a way bigger fandom than Young Girls does, but I figured that should be stated just in case someone was confused.
Heartstopper season 3, Nick Nelson is singing Symphony.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, season 2,
I don't think season 3 is gonna be happy enough to warrant that.
Slightly post coming out, I don't know.
Yeah, like right after posting on Instagram. On his way to Charlie's house.
I'm bi, actually, all I hear is...
Yeah.
Yeah. I just realized I started the lyrics of not Symphony. I started a song from Epic the Musical, which is a musical adaptation of the Odyssey. I was about to say all I hear are screams.
Not quite.
Yes, it's close. All right. But I associate this song with a character I've written in one of my own stories who has this song on his half of a playlist about his relationship with another character. And this slots in the timeline of these two characters literally about to get together, not when they first met.
Is this the book that I know?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree then. I haven't read it, but from what I know, I agree.
But yeah. And so that's what I mean. Like, it is a bit of a Simon song, but to me, it's really a song about that character now.
Yeah.
Just because it way more fits that moment in my story than I feel like it ever fits Young Royals or even like Simon as a character, especially in the start of the story. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a song that really feels like it shouldn't be a character introduction. Like, I don't really know what they were thinking. And I think it's just because I can't conceive of what the show is like if Simon is a different character.
Yeah.
At least I have a really hard time doing so. Like, Omar sounds so good on the song, but imagining Simon singing this with the choir is actually a little comical.
Yeah, I don't really know how a choir arrangement of this song would go. But I guess if I heard It Takes a Fool to Remain Sane without hearing the choir arrangement first, I might feel the same way, to be honest.
Yeah. And like, it makes it actually more comical. Like, what I find more comical is that in a world where Symphony is Simon's character introduction, Wilhelm still doesn't realize he likes Simon when he literally met him singing a love song. Like, Wilhelm isn't the brightest character, but I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit for being that perceptive, but like, it just feels like the audience would have it be a lot more obvious. Like,
yeah, I think it's irony when the audience knows something that the characters
dramatic
don't.
irony. Yeah.
It would be dramatic irony.
It'd be extreme dramatic irony.
That was sort of an English major term, and I almost had it.
Yay! Yeah, definitely.
You're training me
It's just because there's multiple types of irony.
You're training me well.
Yeah. This is not to say that I don't love hearing the song in Young Royals edits.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you can put any song on a Young Royals edit and it might have me in tears.
Right. Like, especially the ones that came out after season 1, but before any of the rest of the show came out. Like, Symphony fits so well. But like, it like doesn't work in the plot of the show.
That era
it just
of
doesn't.
the Tumblr really changed my brain chemistry for the worse.
See, I wasn't on Tumblr at that time, because I'm a pretty late addition to Tumblr, even though I'm very Tumblr coded as a person.
You are very Tumblr coded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But like, I was still like the extent was keeping up to Tumblr lore via internet archaeologist Strange Eons on YouTube.
That's fair.
So,
that's fair.
But and then also like watching a bunch of Young Royals reactions, following the comments of those, watching those, leading to Young Royals edits popping up on my recommended. Like, I was in the fandom, but just wasn't in the Tumblr side of the fandom, and so like, I can only imagine.
I was a 2013 One Direction's Tumblr girly myself, so
yeah.
I've
as mentioned in our episode with Alec last week.
Yeah, and he was giving me shit for it, which I didn't appreciate.
I mean, it didn't come off on mic that much. It was his facial
expression.
Yeah, so listeners don't know how he was more. It's more just that. Love you, Alec, if you listen to this. He's incredibly straight, and so something just that unabashedly fangirl gets like.
Don't roast him too hard. He's an angel.
Yeah, no, fair.
But I thought that was rude. I was like, I'm a queer AFAB. What do you expect from me?
It's really fun.
Of course I'm going to be in the One Direction.
I mean, it's just funny that he doesn't that context is not all he needs to know that, pretty much.
It's true.
Or at least suspect it.
I'm a queer AFAB, of course. Louis Tomlinson.
But I love Symphony in Young Royals edits. I feel like I did see a Symphony in a Young Royals edit that involved like season 1 and 2.
I'd love to see some more recent ones.
Yeah, Symphony doesn't really, as like people have kind of forgotten about Symphony.
Yeah,
it's kind of a sleeper hit because like there's so many other songs related to Young Royals that you could use that are actually in the show. Yeah. So it's like.
So I do often forget about Symphony it's not on my constant radar. No,
fair. Like Symphony for me is more about the book series that I'm writing because it's related to that one character. Like in my head, like it's more of that than it is a Young Royals song anymore, which is like why it's like discussing it feels weird. I'm like, it just doesn't fully belong to Young Royals anymore in my head. So, or like it barely does, honestly.
It only belongs to Young Royals for me when I see edits or I listen to this singles EP, but I really only listened to this singles EP, admittedly. This was the first time in probably over a year.
Yeah, it's been a while, just because, like, as mentioned, like, most people do prefer the versions in the show, and I'm also, like, more often than not, Margaret will just rewatch the show rather than...
Yeah. If I want that, I'll just turn on the app.
And I've listened to Symphony far, far, far more than any of the other songs on this single, but not in context of listening to this single. I've listened. It's to the context of listening through playlists I've made about this central relationship in my book series.
That's fair.
But shout out to Omar's vocals, like
always,
like as always. But like for this song especially, like they slap on the song. Like I can't honestly.
They go fucking hard.
Like I don't know if there's a song where Omar sings better than this song. Like there's songs that are on par with this song, but like
I would certainly say that there are at least songs on this song's level.
Yes, but like
I could not rank them unless I went back and listened to them.
Right. Yeah. We'll see if through Symphony we're going to cover Omar's album for first and only album so far in chunks, and so when we finish on all those, maybe we'll have another Symphony episode ranking them.
Yeah,
we'll see. Anyway, in any event, ready to move on to Remember?
Yeah, this one makes me sad.
Yeah. Honestly, it is the blow is like softened for me because again, it's Omar covering Remember. It's not Simon singing Remember to Wilhelm, which is
that's really
actually
sad.
Devastating. Like
it is devastating.
I mean, and that's to say the song isn't itself like show version is so emotional. I do miss it at least a little bit when I listen to this song. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Like there are some like the vocals on this are so polished, so clean, but in the show, the fact that like Omar is almost certainly singing live, especially like if he's not singing live in It Takes Two when we say it, he's singing live in Remember because you cannot get that raw of a recording in a studio. Like
no, it's crazy.
Like this is like the radio version of Omar's Remember. And like the beat is so funky and like it's like it's honestly a little bit more of a bop than Remember is in the show.
It's one of those songs where if you don't listen to the lyrics, you might dance.
Right, exactly.
But if you listen to the lyrics, you might cry.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, we talked about this song in Revolution for this cycle, and like it's just such a for anyone listening in the future, we're in the season 1 episode 4 cycle, which is part of why this bonus episode couldn't come any earlier because we needed to hit Remember. Like this song is such a vibe for the moment it comes in the show. Like hearing it out of context is weird in the same way hearing Symphony out of context is not. Or even It Takes Full to Remain Sane. Like it's like hearing Remember not being sung by Simon and the Electric Choir it just is odd to my brain, if that makes sense.
Interesting. I don't know if I feel the same way, but I do know that I understand.
Yeah. And like I don't always feel this way, but I think in the context of like, oh, I'm listening to this to discuss it on my Young Royals podcast, like, and having so frequently had to listen to Remember in the show, watching this episode so many times for this cycle, like it's just not the same. And like if there's any song that I'm gonna hold it against that for like not having the show version, it might be Remember. Like, because we don't get
fair.
All of It Takes Two to Remain Sane. I feel like we get more of Remember almost, like uninterrupted with like no one, like without Vincent interrupting or anything. Like we get so much of Remember in the show. Yeah,
we really do. We're spoiled.
And it's like when you listen to the recording, like there's a whole verse that Simon doesn't sing there's a verse of It Takes Two to Remain Sane, and there's a verse of Remember that is not in the both of them are not in the show, but like the one for It Takes Two to Remain Sane fits the show a little less, so like I totally get cutting it off there. And also like you only had so long in the pilot, but like the verse of Remember, like all of Remember, that extra verse actually fits the show even more. Almost like it just even more fits the vibe, and so you're just like you almost wish the entire song was in the show, and so you could hear it in that version. But I don't know. Yeah. It's honestly harder for me to put myself back to the first time I heard this version of the song than it is for It Takes Two to Remain Sane, because like Willman has one beginning, and this is no longer their ending like it was when I first listened to this. Like this song meant a whole lot more when it was like the last song I was ever gonna hear Omar sing, because I didn't realize that his album was coming out like a few weeks after I listened to this song for the first time.
That's fair.
Like this version reminds me more of the period in which I became a Young Royal super fan. Like I watched the show a month after it came out, but I didn't become obsessed because I treated it like other Netflix shows I watched at the time, which is like I watch all of it in one day and then hope there's going to be more of it like in a year. And then around when I started watching reactions to it in spring 2022, just kind of as something to like occupy my I use them to like relax and like occupy my time in my downtime in college. Like I literally fell into discovering that Simon's actor was a musician, and then went down an Omar rabbit hole that culminated in his first album coming out like maybe a week or two after I first started listening to him.
You were spoiled.
Very much so. Like I remember listening to Symphony on repeat and then just transitioning to listening to various songs on the Omar album incessantly. But more on that a couple cycles from now. Any more thoughts about Remember or the single as a whole?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered everything.
Yeah, I mean, this was always going to be really a simple episode. But it's about as long as some of our regular episodes. So it's like we had a lot to say still.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a Felice episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, Felice.
Yeah. Or like a part 2 of I think this is might be longer, at least in the raw recording, than the final cut of Art of the Choice part 2 for this cycle. But that was just because we rushed the Art of the Choice part 2, if listeners couldn't tell, because Margaret needed to get to work.
Yeah, stupid work.
Yeah. But with that, are you ready for me to take us out?
Sure am, buddy.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to keep up to date with when we release new episodes and other pod-related announcements, you can check out our Instagram or our threads at People Don't Talk About. Our next mainline episode will be a character assassination for August. Get excited. And with that, all that's left to say is...
Let's start a revolution, baby.
Baby.